My name is Matt Demas. I'm going to be reading from, it's a sequel to my first book, Steel City Outbreak. It's called Surviving the Outbreak. It's a parallel storyline that runs with the first one. I was going to read from chapter 7. It's kind of a short chapter, but it should sum up about 10 minutes. It's a little too short. If anybody would want me to continue on, I can do so. Okay. The house that Phil took hiding in came to be a place that the undead sought out for their place to feed. The house was slowly becoming overran by the undead camper corpses. Carol and Erica still stayed hidden away upstairs. Phil, Butts, and Rita were still in the living room. Rita was becoming frightened. "You're a son of a bitch, Phil," Butts said. "Why? You didn't tell us you were followed." "How the hell was I followed? Look how long I've been in here. There's no way I was followed. You really think they could be that smart?" "Obviously. How'd they know we were in here?" From nowhere, the window that was behind Rita broke open from the undead beings pounding on it. When the window broke open, one of the undead beings grabbed hold of Rita. With the little air she had in her lungs, you were able to hear a small scream come out of her. "Mother!" Butts yelled, running to her aid. Phil followed and helped Butts pull Rita away from the window. "Get her safe," Butts yelled as he picked his rifle up and began firing at the cannibal horde. The window was completely gone, and it didn't seem like the horde was going away anytime soon. Butts non-stop was knocking off the undead, but the horde was getting smaller. Phil, with Rita in his arms, were laying on the floor. Rita was holding her chest tight. She looked as if she couldn't breathe. "Butts, we have a big problem over here," Phil yelled. Butts didn't hear him over the gunfire. He was finally able to get the crowd away from the window. He quickly loaded his rifle and sat it down on the table, and then saw Phil holding Rita in his arms. She was lifeless. He stopped dead in his tracks and stared down at Phil with a look of sadness, but at the same time fury. "You are a son of a bitch. What did you do?" "I didn't do anything. You told me to get her to safety. It was too late. She took a heart attack." "You killed her?" "Me? It was those things in the gunfire. It scared her. I let you into my house and you destroy everything." Butts reached down and picked up his rifle. Phil let Rita go, leaving her lifeless body on the floor, and stood up in defense. "Butts, whatever you're thinking about doing, don't do it. I will help you. Don't forget about your wife and daughter." Again, from nowhere, another scattered horde showed up. They were all plowing at the door, and only few came to the window. Butts began firing again. Phil stood back, looking for a way to escape, before Butts completely lost his mind. After shooting at the few that came to the window, Butts caught Phil sneaking up the steps. He aimed the rifle at Phil. "Just where in the hell do you think you're going?" "Butts, relax. I'll relax as soon as I put a bullet in your head." Ready to pull the trigger, Phil thinks of an idea to get out of being shot, pointed behind Butts to fool him. "Butts, look out!" Butts turned to shoot as Phil charged at him. As soon as Phil reached his presence, he swung into Butts in the face, making him fall to the floor. Phil landed on top, ready to take another swing, but stopped. They both made eye contact. Phil began to feel very sorry. "I didn't kill your mother." More undead beings began approaching the window from a distance, while a man with horror crowded the door. Out of the blue, there was a repeated sound of gunfire. Then all of a sudden, Butts' hammer fisted Phil in the face. Phil fell over with blood gushing from his nose. Butts again went for the rifle. Before he could get a shot off, Phil grabbed a piece of broken glass from the window and swung it. When he swung it, it landed a few inches inside Butts' throat. Butts dropped his rifle, falling to his knees. He looked up at Phil, gurgling on his blood. Shots still firing outside of the house. Butts got his last ever sentence out, which seems like he likes to say it a lot. "You're a son of a bitch." Butts fell over, suffocating on his own blood. Phil heard the gunfire come to an end. He peeked out of the broken window, but couldn't see anybody. He grabbed the rifle and ran to the upstairs. He saw a long hallway that led to one door on his right and a single door to his left. He opened the door on his left. When he opened the door, he saw the room painted with blood. The room was also being occupied by a little girl that he did not notice yet. He stared around the room for a brief moment. He noticed the window and went for it. All he had on his mind was a place for escape. On the way to the window, a small being came from under the bed and grabbed his leg. Phil jumped and noticed that it was the corpse of Butts' daughter. She looked to only be 5 years old at the most. She was in a little gown covered in blood along with her hair. She appeared to be bitten on her right cheek. Attempting to attack Phil, he just gave her a small boot and she fell to the floor. Get away from me, little shit. Phil looked out of the window and saw a small roof, but it led out to the front of the house. He couldn't escape to the front of the house because that's where the whores were coming from. He took off passing the 4-foot-tall living dead girl and ran down the long hall. Then he opened the door to see the room painted with blood as well. What kind of house am I in? He asked himself. Entering in the room, he saw a torso of a lady laying on the bed. The arms were tied back and her legs were sitting beside each other on the bed. He stood in the doorway just staring, wondering what he got himself into. He thought to himself of being in a horror movie. Appearing down the hallway behind him was the 4-foot-tall living dead girl. She walked slow and lamely towards him. Phil just stared and laughed. He then entered the room further. He noticed a bloody axe laying next to the bed. The more further he entered the room, he grew more and more disgusted. He found chopped up corpses in a pile in the room. It appeared as if Butts was feeding his family. There were pieces of arms and feet nearly torn down to the bone. He grew sick and began to vomit. In the middle of vomiting, the undead child finally entered the room. Once again, only some gunshots sounded. Phil finished vomiting, and the greatest sound he ever heard was a voice calling out his name. Dad! Dad! Phil became encouraged. He took one look at the 4-foot living dead girl. Dad, are you in here? Dad! Phil came off with a devious smile and pulled the trigger. The bullet severed the undead child's head in several pieces. The people in the lower level heard the rifle sound and began to call for him once more. Dad! I'm here, yelled Phil. Josh and his mother came rushing into the room. They noticed a torso on the bed and became instantly frightened. Don't worry about that thing. Come here and hug me. The family became reunited and were happy again. They were going to be able to start their journey to nowhere once more. I didn't think we were going to see you again, Mother said. I was beginning to do the same. Josh looked over at the bind torso. How the hell did you wind up in here? Josh asked. It's a long story, so I'll tell you on the way. Where are we going? That's kind of that kid I was left with on the road gave me a key to this garage. He says it's in Millville. Anybody want me to keep going?
That's pretty good.
Right,
You're perfect on time.
Okay.
Good job. So some questions for the panel, and you guys can shout out your answers. You can fight over who answers first. How did you begin as a writer? What was your first published work? Start with Tim.
Okay. It's hard to say because, I mean, some people don't consider self-published stuff published work. But my first thing I got ever published was my review for I Bought a Vampire Motorcycle. It got into Ultraviolet magazine, issue number 4. Art Ettinger, met him at a place called Incredibly Strange Video. It used to be around here. And he was looking for people to review movies. And the store owner, Bruce Lentz at the time, was saying, you should talk to Art. I met Art, and Art's like, yeah, we're just seeing who's out there, because there's so many people out there writing reviews on the internet right now. And I was already beginning to write my first book at the time. And I went to Bruce's store and decided, hey, what movie would get into the magazine? And he's like, I don't know. I was like, I just randomly, I found it. I always wanted to watch it. I bought a Vampire Motorcycle. I picked it up, watched it, wrote a review in about 20 minutes after it was over, sent it to Art, and Art said, you're now going to have a review in every issue of Ultraviolet magazine. So that was how I got published.
Great.
I started writing when I was in first grade. As soon as I learned to put sentences together, I started telling stories. My first published work, publishing being open to interpretation, would be my first film, Slime City, which I shot in 1986 and came out as a midnight movie in '88. I didn't turn to writing prose until maybe 2002, and my first book, Personal Demons, was published then. It won a award for like a small press publishing contest, which it's great to have a publisher put your book out, but you learn quickly they're not really going to promote it or spend money. It's a learning process. I very much wanted to get that book released as a mass market paperback because I knew I wanted it to be an ongoing series. But I didn't want to keep writing the sequels for small press publishers. So I came up with a plan, which was to do just a sickeningly commercial horror book, which was Johnny Gruesome. And I figured I could find a publisher who liked that, and if they published that, then they would reprint Personal Demons. Because I was having no luck. I was submitting it to Tor, Leisure, everywhere, and I was striking out. I just thought that this is crazy because the reviews are so good. Plan worked. They liked that book. Bought the next book. Now I do at least one book every year with them. It works out more to one every 9 months. And unlike the small press publishers, Medallion, and they're not a giant company by any means, but they spend quite a bit of money promoting my work. They advertise it in Morgan Fangoria, and they take me to Fan Expo Canada every year, which 60,000 people attend. And they seem very committed to expanding my audience, so I'm really happy with that.
So, Matt?
Something similar to Greg. I started writing when I was in the elementary school, and I always had like a big passion with the horror movies and everything. And mostly with zombies. There's like something with zombies just stuck in my head. So what I wanted to do was start making my own little, zombie stories and series, things like that. When I was first published, it was about 5 years ago. 2006. It was through Trafford Publishing. I actually paid a nice amount of money to get it published, and after a few years I was looking at it. It was when I was 16 years old. I went through it, and it was the English grammar was horrible. I never really had it edited. It was another learning experience of rushing to get it out there. It was actually published twice. I found another publishing company, which later on I found was, kind of a flaw, and I really couldn't get the right exposure or anything that I wanted through them. So I ended up making a series with this stuff here, and just started making up some queries and found Library of the Living Dead. But I started. I was a young kid. It was just something with the horror. I just loved writing. I started with just, a few short stories. I moved into my grandmother's house about 7 years ago after she passed away, and it was weird. I found this box sitting in her closet. It was construction paper, and I really can't draw today either, but I probably wrote that and was making little books when I was probably in like the first, second grade. How much, I go back from, maybe 7, 8 years old up to, I'll be 25 next month. So it's just something that's like in my blood, just love to do the horror, especially mainly zombies and everything too. Yeah.
Well, that actually goes right into the next question. Why horror? And Tim, you.
It's fascinated me since I was 3 years old, literally.
What was it? Did you see a movie?
I did at the time. I seen 2 movies on a show called Chiller Theater with Bill Cardell, and I seen Twisted Brain was the first movie, and the second movie was was it The Creeping Flesh or Creeping Terror? Yeah, Creeping Terror, because it was the Rug Monster movie. They nicknamed it, and I seen those 2 movies, and for some reason it just stuck with me. And as soon as I seen Creature from the Black Lagoon, not too long after that on Chiller Theater, I had a fascination with monsters and went from there, just watching horror movie after horror movie, whether it was on Skinamax or HBO. Just anytime I could do it. I lived and breathed watching horror movies. When I was even a teenager, for 3 years, I had a paper route, and every Saturday was the same thing, or every Friday and Saturday was the same thing. Friday, I'd go to the movie theater to see whatever horror movie came on, good or bad. Paid, went by myself because I had no social life. Went and seen it. Saturday, get up, I'd go deliver papers, I'd come home, grab a bike, go to the video store down the street, rented 2 or 3 horror movies every single Saturday until I went through his catalog of 500 horror movies, and then started renting them over again. And I just couldn't get enough of horror movies. And plus watching USA Up All Night with Rhonda Scher and Gilbert Gottfried, that was awesome because it exposed me to stuff like Toxic Avenger, Vice Academy, just off the wall stuff. And then finding Joe Bob Briggs in the mid 80s on the movie channel, wondering who in the hell this guy was. And to me, Chili Billy and Joe Bob Briggs are the two people that I idolize, just because Chili Billy would give you all these weird off the wall stuff that came out before I was born, but I got to watch it all over again. And then Joe Bob Briggs, just his knowledge of some of these B movies is ridiculous, and it just I felt more drawn to him more and more. And a lot of it is I for one reason or another, I keep useless information, as I call it, from watching these movies in my brain. Like Greg pointed out, the director of Flesh Eating Mothers. I couldn't tell you that, but I could tell you how many all the Hellraiser films, there's 8 of them. I could tell you there's 6 Leprechaun films. It's just stupid, useless stuff. It just, for one reason or another, I just contain it. But yeah, just all my life I've watched horror movies, whether it's about the makeup, good storyline, even just crappy ones like Slumber Party Massacre. I love them.
It's not useless information anymore, though, because the geeks and the nerds have taken over the world.
Yes.
And now people aren't afraid to say that they love this stuff, and there's an audience out there. You just got to find a way to reach them. That's a big book.
660 pages. I mean, for the love of God, who would get Leatherface 3 on their arm? Not the original.
Not the
Leatherface
original.
3.
And you're still a baby. You've got a lot to write, both of you. I'm the old man. I mean, but 3 is a good age. I mean, when I watched cartoons back in the days before cable, we had 3 channels on a Canadian station. I always loved monsters. I never grew out of it. Never went in another direction. My books tend to be cross-genre. I like a little bit of sci-fi in there, a lot of crime drama. I love noir, so there's some private eye stuff in there. I like mixing the genres up, and in the Jake Hellman files especially, I try to do a different genre in every book so that I can show an agent I can write in any genre. Like I said, crime drama, private eye. The one that comes out next year for this series is sort of like a mercenary movie. The 5th one is kind of like a disaster movie. So it's all my favorite genres packed into the horror. And I've actually had agents say, you could write a conventional thriller right now. My father's a big agent. I could get you a big deal. And I get kind of excited, and I look at the debt that I have and what I'd like to get for my daughter, and that sounds great. But the fact is, I love monsters. It's all I want to write. I find that when I'm writing, it isn't a cliche that you write what you want to read. I don't work from outlines. I like to surprise myself. I like to know what happens next. And if you remove that monster or supernatural element, I'm not that interested. So it's in the DNA.